Welcome, my brothers and sisters, my sons and daughters, to the real world with Elder George. I'm Elder George. I'm your elder, not a religious elder, but a societal elder. I'm in my 90s now, and I think that qualifies me to be your elder. Now, referring to my last video, or let's say to my message in general, the message that I have been presenting to you and you will hear me present for a long time forward is, in order to have a happy, healthy, harmonious human environment requires three things: spiritual awareness, gender understanding, and family focus. In my last video, I discussed the universal principle of gender to give a little more insight into the gender understanding part of my message. Today I'm going to elaborate on it a little further. I'm going to share with you what I call the Trinity of accomplishment. The Trinity of accomplishment. There's a Trinity in most religions, and what I call the Trinity of accomplishment, in order to make something happen, there has to be the will to do it, the doing of it, and the medium through which you're doing it. For instance, light at night. Light at night comes from the assertive sun shining on the receptive moon, and it produces light at night. It needs those three things, right? To produce magnetism, you have the North Pole shoots a charge to the receptive South Pole, and it produces magnetism. The farmer, the assertive farmer, he puts seed into the receptive earth, and it produces fruits and vegetables. And so on as we go down the line. Whatever we do, we need the will to do it, the doing of it, and the medium through which we're doing it. Now, that's one example of many of gender in action. Right? And gender is complete. That is, it's not mostly feminine or mostly masculine. No, let's take light at night. The moon is completely receptive. It receives the light from the sun, and it makes light at night, right? And so on. The farmer is completely assertive. He gets the seed, he puts it in the earth. So we have the assertive masculine principle, the receptive feminine principle, and the medium through which we're working. I just thought I'd share that with you, that all of life works on that principle. And there's a chapter in my first book, The Trinity of Accomplishment. In my first book, Dear Brothers and Sisters, Gender and Its Responsibility, you will see a full chapter devoted to this lesson. Now, let's project a little further. Let's talk about structure. Structure. Men make structure. If there's anything inherent in what the male does, it's making structure. Not only humans, animals as well. Now, the basic structure for society is called the family. Amongst lions, it's called the pride. Amongst deer, it's called the herd. Amongst birds, it's called the flock. Amongst baboons, it's called the troop. There is a structure to all existence. And when the structure breaks down, as you're seeing happening in the world today, chaos begins to ensue. All right? Now, men make all structures, all, and there's a reason for this. Scientists have determined that boys congregate in groups of 8 to 12. And I can remember when I was a boy in grade school, we would congregate in groups of 8 to 12. Now with 8 to 12, you could make a team, you could make a club, you could make a gang, Could do all kinds of things with 8 to 12. The same scientists determined that girls congregate in groups of 3 or 4. You can't make much of a structure with 3 or 4. You can't have much of a team, of a club, of a gang, or anything. Now, there are reasons that women don't make structures. Number one, a structure is a conceptual thing. There is no size, shape, texture to structures. You can't put a structure in your pocketbook or your pocket. Structures don't exist. They are concepts, right? They are concepts. Men think conceptually. Women think visually. Number two, when women use the structures that men have created, the fact is when they get beyond 4 people, they start having cliques. Women have cliques in grade school, in high school, in college, in business, until they die. Right? So the nature of the male in all species of life is to make structure. That's what they do. They do it inherently. Right? In fact, the mating process through most of the world, females want to see that the male is going to make the structure that they need before they mate with him. They just don't happen to mate. Right? The lioness looks over the pride before she joins it. The doe looks over the stag before she mates with him. They want to see, will these males make the structure that they need to exist in their lives? Now, you heard me elaborate in my last video that the philosophy, we don't need many anymore, is creating problems in society. The we don't need men anymore philosophy means we don't need structures anymore. Get that clearly. Women don't make structures. So if men don't make structures, there are only 2 options. We're going to operate structureless and society will collapse, or what is happening to society now, the government keeps making more rules to try to avoid the chaos that is developing because the natural structures that men make are no longer being made. I'm not going to rehash what I did in previous videos, but by now I think you all understand that unless there is structure made, society collapses. Right? And the government really makes structure for control, not for the propagation and preservation of the species. So we'll go into that in more detail in the future. For now, I'm suggesting that you go to my website, www.mensaction.net, and under the About Us tab, you will find an essay index. If you go to the essay index, under the letter T, you will find a 6-part series, The Implosion of Western Society. I ask that you review those 6 essays, as it gives you a lot of background for today's talk, and with that we can move forward together. Remember, working together, we will survive. Thank you. Dear viewer, an important part of my message is an explanation of gender, the principle of gender, and it is elaborated on in my 2 books, A Gender Handbook for Western Man and Dear Brothers and Sisters, Gender and Its Responsibility. The first book, Dear Brothers and Sisters, Gender and Its Responsibility, discusses the many facets of gender and points out that it is a universal principle. The second book, A Gender Handbook for Western Man, is not really a handbook, but I explained gender in more technical terms, which I thought would be better appreciated by the Western mind. Both of these books are readily available from Amazon and Barnes & Nobles. I recommend that you get a copy of each and familiarize yourself with the principle of gender, which is being ignored in society today, and we are paying a price. Thank you.